Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Oh, I'm getting a
Hello.
little bit of feedback. Hey, Mel, how you doing? I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I'm not quite sure what that is. I hope that it's not impacting on your sound too much. Thank you very much, guys, for coming back. And welcome our new joiners for a really great session. This is the perfect pitch. And obviously, over the duration of the festival, we've been talking about the best ways that you can get commissioned. We've been talked about the best ways you can kind of monetize your content, kind of advertise your content, the full kit and caboodle. And we are very, 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 very lucky to have Emile. Emile, no disrespect, but I'm absolutely not going to try and say your surname. And that's not for anything other than I'm really dyslexic. And I'm like, it's been stressing me all day. There's been a few surnames over this week that I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even going to try. So I'm going to hand over to you. But more importantly, you've been a commissioner for years and you're currently at UKTV. So have a unique insight into kind of working with content producers and creators and kind of having the conversation and understanding what is needed in a pitch, not only to impress you, but to kind of get your projects across the line. So it's a real pleasure to have you. Before I introduce you, Lily, jump on the stage. These guys probably know by now, but it's always good to give them a really quick reminder. Can you share our features and tell us how best to work all the features that we've got? I seem to be disappearing.
Okay. All right. I found my microphone. Where's my camera? Am I here?
There you are. And let's go. I got as far as the top button with the TV Collective Live last time I did this. So I'm sure you're going to do a lot of
well,
job.
Yeah, I think I'm having connectivity issues, so I'll keep attempting to turn my video on. But for those of you who have been here before, you'll hear it again. So let me refer you to the black bar at the very top of your screen. That is the main menu for the whole festival. And there's as you can see, it says the TV Collective Live on it. And there is a big button that says schedule. That is where all of our sessions, all of our networking, one-to-ones, which you can find Emile at next Thursday. In fact, Emile is not only here as a session speaker, he is also one of our TVC experts. You can grab 10 minutes with him next Thursday. So you can book in your schedule, add it to your calendar. If you have missed any sessions, you can also replay them live inside this browser. Next to that, you will find a little newspaper icon. That is the feed. So it's like a chat, but it's for the whole festival. So you put a message there and everybody can read it. So please do. At the moment, it's just me on there on my own, screaming into the void. So please do join me. Next to that, you will see the little people icon, which is our favorite button, isn't it, Simone? So here you can see here you can see everybody attending the festival, and there's a little button that switches to show you everybody who is currently online right now at the festival. And underneath people's profiles, you will see a little speech bubble, which allows you to direct message them, and a button next to that, which looks like a little calendar, and that is for you to be able to request 10 minutes with them. So you request 10 minutes, and it emails them directly via the festival platform. Now, this is a function that comes standard with this platform that Simone and I cannot control. So it includes anybody attending the festival, and surprise, Emile, that includes you. So please be responsible. But it does mean that you can connect with Emile on this platform and DM him and send him a nice little message. Send him a sweet message, tell him he did a good job today. Down the right-hand side, we've got our in-session menu. And again, you've got chat. And I can see Michelle already knows how to use it. Well done, Michelle. Beneath that, you've got the little Q&A bubbles. That is where, if you could please post your questions to Emile, it just helps me moderate your questions and make sure we get you up on stage. And if Emile or Simone refer to any resources that you may want to look at later or during the session, you will find them in the second icon from the bottom. It's the little 2 pages. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Again, just to remind you, the TV Collective Festival Live, as you sure that you know by now, is a kind of it's partly the conversations that we have in our podcast, so it's the live version of our podcast, but it's also what we kind of do online. We have an online platform where we share jobs, we share opportunities, we connect. We've got about 400 or 500 members on there that you can continue to connect with. Like Emile's on there, there's commissioners, there are investors, loads of people. So definitely get involved. If you're looking for a community of creators that you want support from, definitely the place to be. Emile, you're over at UKTV, a commissioner at UKTV. How long have you been over at UKTV? And tell me the kind of stuff that you look after. 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah. The shows that I look after are Big Z's Big Eats, Stacey Dooley Sleeps Over, Jamali Malik's Follow the Leader, which is out now. Just came out yesterday on You, so check that out. Then there are shows like Red Flag, which is a true crime show, Dream Car Fixers, and tomorrow we're announcing another commission in the car space. Well, yeah, Emma Willis Delivering Babies. I do that. I look after that now as well. So a lot of the talent-led shows and a lot of the docu formats. It's kind of like it's popular factual and docu formats is kind of what I do. I would say.
Wonderful. And before being at UKTV, where were you before? What were you doing before?
It's interesting that because I looked at as part of Edinburgh. I was doing a session on class, and I look back at my CV and like, oh, it's all over the place. You know, it's like but that's the way it is when you are just kind of scrapping for jobs. You know, 2-week jobs, 3-week jobs, and all of that kind of stuff. But directly before this, and it took me 6 years to get here. To get to the next stage I'm going to tell you about it, which is I was SPing on Hospital, the BBC factual series about both sides of the NHS, the patients, and then also the NHS workers. We won an RTS for that, and it's won a BAFTA before. And prior to that, it was all Fact 10, basically. Come dine with me, dinner date. That's where I kind of cut my teeth. The stuff that we're never going to see again. The mid-range stuff. Because like if you don't, you know, it's one of those things. If you almost don't come in at that kind of that high value content level, which most people don't, because you know you have to have the connections in that way. That's the only way you can cut your teeth and learn the skills. But then it's very, 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 very hard to get across to prestigious content and to award-winning content.
So you've worked both as a program maker and as a commissioner. In terms of kind of what's the main differences that you're seeing in terms, I think like everybody wants to be a commissioner, and some people get there and get frustrated because they don't make content or they make. So what are the kind of main differences, or maybe the things that you miss as a program maker?
Okay. The main difference is that when you're a commissioner, people listen to you. That is the biggest difference, Simone. I'm not saying anything different to what I was when I was a program maker, but now people are actually listening to me. So that's the first thing. So there's a big dynamic shift on that front. The other thing is as a commissioner, you are juggling lots of different shows at the same time, whereas you know you're neck deep in a show when you're a program maker, and then you move on to the next one, etc., etc. So I'll be juggling like multiple different shows and developments all at the same time.
So as a commissioner, obviously you are seen, and we are here to talk about the perfect pitch. And let me remind you to please put your questions in the chat function or in the question function, so that we can. And this is all about you guys, so make sure that you take the most advantage out of Emile and kind of ask everything and anything that you need in terms of forming your perfect pitch. You've been a commissioner for obviously for 3 years. What are some of the common faux pas, mistakes, or some of the things that you kind of, when you see a pitch that you're like, oh my God, that you constantly see over and over and over and over again? But if it was a starting point, like, please, you're the one big do not do in your pitch, what would you say?
Isn't it funny that we would start at the same point, Simone? So your first impressions are really important in terms of how you you know how you start, like in terms of what your opening gambit is, and you've got to use your words sparingly and well, right? So what I'll often have is I'll have an intro meeting with a prodco, and within that there'll be like the kind of head of development, there might be the creative director, there might be the MD, that kind of thing. Biggest faux pas: you don't know what shows we've made. That's incredible. That, like, when I say it like that, it's kind of like if I am meeting someone and they don't even know the names of the shows that we've made, that's a waste of everyone's time. But it's also a bit of an insult as well, you know.
And is that just happen 1 or 2 times, or you have frequently?
That's frequent. I think what people don't understand, that is frequent. That happens all the time, and not just that they don't know the name of the shows; they haven't seen any of the shows. I will, when I've met with a production, when I meet with a production company, I'll know, a certain amount of the shows. I'll have already done some research, etc. I don't understand why a production company wouldn't do that as well when they're trying to sell to me. I'm not trying to sell to them, you know.
And
So
that cuts across the board, even no matter who you're pitching for. Rule number one: watch their content and can be able to talk
do your
about the
research.
content. Right, do the
Do
research.
your research. Like whoever you meet, right? If someone says, "Let's go for a coffee is never a coffee," right? If anyone says that, or if if you get time with anyone, know their shit. You gotta know. That's like a basic. That's not something I feel that I should be telling people to do, but I have to keep reiterating that at this stage. When I went, when I went for an interview with for UKTV, I'd gone through their entire suite of content, and I know that's an interview. So is a pitch. It's the same thing. We are looking. I'm looking to have a creative, collaborative relationship with someone. So if they don't know our material, and if they're not in tune with the sensibilities, and they haven't discovered any patterns or anything like that, it's going to be very hard for us to have a creative collaboration right off the bat. I'm looking at it and thinking, I'm thinking, okay, well, what this intro meeting is about is for me to tell you all the stuff that's not on the platform, that's going on in the background. It's for me to be really clear about steers. It's for me to confirm your suspicions, and it's for me to break down the patterns of commissioning. That's what that meeting's for. It's not to go away and watch this, go away and watch that, go away and watch that. Anyone can tell you that.
Yeah, and like you said, it's quite basic, isn't it? That at least if you're going to kind of pitch or even go for a job or anything you're going to do where you have a meeting, rule number one, a meeting, a coffee is never a coffee, never just a coffee. And number two, make sure that you know your shit. You do the research, like you rightly say. What is another common problem or another common frustration for you as a commissioner that you often see when people pitch?
I'd say okay. So I'm going to jump to another regular common issue with pitches, writing. So what and this is what I want to break down in this session, right? Is how you present a deck and how you present an idea, right? When it comes to writing, you've got to sell an idea in the first paragraph, really, right? Don't ever think that you have to walk through a whole idea, and by 5 we get to the resolution of what that idea is. Nobody's going to read that for highest the truth bit, like your CV. It is very much like that. So writing in terms of the structure of how you design your deck and how you get people interested, that is an issue. A second issue, and I'll go into more about writing in a bit, but a second issue is badly presented decks. Right now, it might sound like this is it might sound like this is the kind of needless stuff that it doesn't have to look pretty if the idea is good. What presentation does in a deck and what pictures do in a deck is they introduce you to the tone and the style of the show. Now, we're quite visual people, and not you and me, Simone, anyone who's quite visual people, right? So you've got to kind of represent the idea in the pictures and the way you've designed your deck. So nowadays, because you've got AI, I've turned a couple of my production companies on who didn't have great design in their decks, and I've sent them off to go and explore AI, and they've come back with much better presented decks, much more interesting to look at. And when you think about it, you've got various different AI programs, and then alongside that, what you previously had was PowerPoint, PDFs, Word. That's not good for design, is it? So you need to harness AI. Like what I think AI does, right, is it does a lot of your laundry. It does all of that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? You still have to bring your kind of soul and the framework to it, and you still need to wear the clothes, but it does all of that washing for you.
No, definitely. And actually, I'm going to put in chat now. I've discovered this presentation app which has changed my life called Gamma. And it's
Great.
just it's just like the best thing ever. You just put a prompt in it, like I want to give me a presentation about a cop show that I'm going to present to Emile, and it will actually write it for you. Then obviously you got to go back and fix it and give it your language and stuff like that. But as a real good starting point, it's a really great tool. So I put it in case anybody's interested. So kind of and we're like, so different, obviously different broadcasters accept pictures in different ways, right? So some just like a sentence, some like, for you, what's your preference? So you prefer a deck, and how big and how long should that deck be?
So we're way before the deck.
Right.
The first
Good.
thing that we do, so what I'm looking for is I'm effectively looking for talent that I can collaboratively work for. I don't expect you to bring me the perfect pitch the first time we meet. What I actually expect is for us to develop a relationship that lasts for over a year before you start giving me the best
Oh wow.
pitches. That is what I'm working towards.
Say that again, because I don't think a lot of people wouldn't really appreciate that. And it's funny because Danny from Big Deal, somebody asked him like, how does he pitch? And he says that he has a select group of people that he has a good relationship, spent a lot of time building that relationship, and then super serves them. So you're saying that actually for you, your preference, for you, it's like taking a year or so to really nurture a relationship before you see pictures? For real?
No. I'll see pictures before that, but
Okay,
before we get to a position where we're at the perfect pitch, or where we're regularly receiving, right on the money pitches. And why is that? Is because we've got so much information to get through, right? There are 4 channels that I commission for, W, Gold, Dave, and Yesterday, right? They each have their own personality. They each have their own brand. And then you've got you on top of that, right? So the first thing I do is I have an intro meeting with the production company, and we talk about the shows that are on. We talk about what kind of talent they've noticed. We talk about what kind of patterns they've seen. That's the first thing. So the first thing I will do when we go into an intro meeting is I'll say, okay, so what do you like that is on our channel, and where do you think you've got synergy, right? That's the first thing, because also we don't want production companies coming to us and making stuff that they don't want to make for whatever reason. Yeah, you can't put a square peg in a round hole, right? So we're trying to find the synergy within those 4 channels and what the production company like and want to do. So 4 channels. What I look at in all of these channels, and where we start off, is 4 things: talent, take, territory, tone.
let's put that in the chat. Let's put that again. Let's say that again. Talent,
take.
Yeah, I'm writing it as well. Take.
Okay. Territory and tone. So every single pitch that where we start is with that. For every channel, they have talent that they really like, right? For every single channel, there's talent that that they're keen, that they want to work with, right? And that comes down to a few kind of key elements. The territory is then also really important. What's the precinct that we're playing in? What where are we? What is the kind of subject, topic, interest, right? Tone is also really important. Are we looking for conflict, or are we looking for something heartwarming? And take is the twist, effectively, right? So let's start with something like W, right? So we've got Emma Willis delivering babies. We've got Stacey Dooley Sleeps Over. We've got Katie Piper, Jailhouse Mums. We've got Gemma and Gorka, Life Behind the Lens. And what else? We've got Catherine Ryan, Parental Guidance. So first patterns that we can see there, all of these titles have the talent's name in them, right? So they've got their household name recognition, right? So what we're looking for is more household name recognition. Yeah, that's the first thing. Then if we look a little bit deeper at the territory and where they're in, right? So Catherine Ryan, Parental Guidance, it's parenting basically. Gemma and Gorka, Life Behind the Lens, is kind of like their personal life. Katie Piper and Emma Willis delivering babies, they both are key interest areas for them. So Emma Willis always wanted to be a midwife, and Katie Piper has been working with women in jail for several years. So those are they've got an authentic connection. And then you got Stacey Dooley, who's doing what Stacey Dooley does, right? So we know that she's got that authentic connection in terms of sleeping over. So I'm looking then at where's the territory, and then when we look at that territory, what I'm looking for within that territory is, one, our audience, our demographic, are like primarily women. It's a women I'd say it's it's not women centric channel. It's a women focused channel, shall we say, right? It's like it should never exclude men, and women's interests are obviously kind of really, really wide. But what we look at there is relatability in terms of where those worlds are, right? So there are how many women are interested in parenting. I mean, how many women are parents? A lot, right? It's a relatively universal thing. Yeah. How many women are involved in their relationships? A lot, right? Again, it's a universal thing. Is childbirth a universal thing? Well, it is pretty much, right? Jail probably isn't, but justice is, right? And then Stacey Dooley is involved in relationships. What she's doing there, she's going to stay over relationships. So, do you see what I mean? So there are patterns within this that I spend my time kind of explaining and breaking down. And the idea is you break down the channel to build another idea up in that place. What's another thing that go on?
Just quickly, before you go on, and please, I want to hear that thought. Is the territory, the talent take territory and tone? Can you use that format, particularly when is that just something unique to UKTV, or is that something that you would use as a framework when you're thinking people should use the framework when they're thinking about their pitch?
I think anyone should use that. In fact, Channel 4 stole it, just so you know. Channel 4 stole it and put it on their lifestyle page. So I think anyone can use it. Channel 4 certainly do. So what I think, the reason that I broke it down like that, and the reason that I turned it into that thing, is to explain the content that we've got on our channel and why these decisions were made. Now, if you just keep coming to me with like, okay, this is Vicky Patterson and she wants to be in an ambulance. Oh, here's Alex Scott and she wants to work as a work in the fire service. That you're not kind of understanding what the elements of the content are there. You're just putting two things together, and actually it's much more complex than that. And we need to break it down to build it up again. So what I'm trying to do is give production companies the blueprint for them to be able to then generate their own ideas.
I hear it.
And then the issue what often happens with production companies and commissioners is they keep firing out ideas left, right, and center, and none of them land. 2 years down the line, the relationship's fizzled out, and they're no further down. They're no further to knowing what on earth that problem was in the first place. Why did they not get any commissions away? And the idea of having a relationship with a production company is that it progresses. It must progress over time. If it doesn't progress over time, right? If a relationship with me doesn't progress over time, it's because the production company are not responding.
Right.
And they're continuing to do things the same way. Now, because that is what I'm invested in. So when relationship with the production company kind of start to go a little bit more quiet, it's because they're not grasping what we need to do to make this commission.
I think also another thing that's quite interesting for me, and you speak about it as you talk, is the idea. I wonder. We've done accelerators and we've worked with production companies, and they're always slightly blown by the idea how collaborative, particularly if they haven't had a commission before, how collaborative the process is. I think that there is a sense that you should come with your idea fully formed and perfect, and that if you ask questions, it's quite like, I've got this, I know it, and they should be really perfect and know exactly where the idea is and know it inside out, and not really give room. And it's actually more quite a defensive conversation. So when you're kind of picking holes, they've got to defend their ideas rather than that collaborative process. Is that what would you say to that? This is the conversations that I've had with some creators. That's that they kind of feel that it's like they're kind of going into the battlefield when they meet a commissioner. They've got to kind of win you over or convince you with their idea. What is the best strategy to kind of work with a commissioner? Is it to be far more collaborative?
As a commissioner, let me ask you a question. Do you think I'd want to not commission? Did you just fall over? Do you think
Sorry, I am walking because my son is knocking the door and he won't be quiet. I'm sure you guys can hear it. So I'm still walking, but I'm completely listening to you. So please continue. Go.
as a commissioner, do you think that I don't want to commission output, or do you think that I do want to commission output?
Mm, 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 mm.
I
Sorry,
do. I obviously want to commission shows, so it doesn't make sense for me to pick holes in ideas when that I can just sort of turn down if that's the case. Yeah. Now I think where what comes in really handy is trying to be in it for the long game. So a good example of like one of my latest commissions that's going to come out, I don't know when it's going to be press release, probably next couple of weeks. That idea came to me 18 months ago.
Okay.
No, more now, nearly 2 years ago. Yeah, nearly 2 years ago, right? And it came from Australia, right? And we weren't doing anything in that world, and we weren't doing anything in that territory either. But I continued to have a dialogue with that person in Australia, because I was like, okay, these international is where I see a lot of content coming from in the future, and we need to sell internationally, and international companies need to work with us too. So we weren't doing any of that stuff, and then we kept that relationship going. We kept talking about ideas, etc. And then it just so happened that the steers from the channel changed at one point, and then I plucked this straight back out. My job is to champion ideas from production companies. It's not to pull them apart. I can just go, no. I can just go, that's no good. But what I'll try and do is go, I don't think this is working because of this. So I'll turn it down and go, I don't think it's working because of this.
I'm just going to pull up Rui's comment, because I think that it's kind of what I was trying to articulate. And as she's a creative who deals with production companies and commissioners, she probably articulates it a bit better than I do. I don't know, Rui. Can I invite you on stage? I'm going to invite you on. Just talk a little bit about that experience. I hope you're able to. She's backstage. I love this. Just to talk a little bit about that. Thanks, Rui.
Am I there? Yeah.
You are indeed.
Okay.
If you can, turn on your camera. If not, no stress.
Oh, okay. I look a mess. Hang on, where's my camera?
No problem. No problem. Go on, Rui.
Okay. Hi there. Hi, Emile.
Hi, Rui.
Yeah. No, I guess I was just thinking that, in the past when we went to see commissioners and, particularly Channel 4, BBC were a bit easier because I knew the BBC because I worked in the BBC for years. But Channel 4, it always felt like you're going into battle, and it was you have to prove yourself. You have to prove your ideas watertight. You've thought of every angle. So you go in there almost armed with all this stuff, right? And it's really refreshing to hear you say that actually it's much more of a creative collaboration, because that's exactly right. That's what it should be in this industry. And that's where we can progress a lot further, where we think, okay, you're looking for a good idea. I've got ideas to sell. Let's make it an even better idea together. So I find that really refreshing, that if that's the kind of approach you take.
Now, what I would say is, if you come to a channel and you go, I've got good ideas, have you looked at the commissioning briefs? Do you know the channel? Because a good idea is not just a good idea. It needs, if you're looking for money from a channel, it needs to work with the channel's briefs. So if you haven't read the commissioning briefs, I'm not saying you haven't, Rui, at all, but if you haven't read the commissioning briefs, which I get a lot, right? And somebody's going, I've got a great idea about this. Somebody said to me, I had once got pitched, I've got a great idea, spin-off of Come Dine With Me, called Come Diet With Me, where you have a diet after Come Dine. I was like, we don't broadcast Come Dine With Me. Why on earth would we do a spin-off of Come Dine With Me?
Yeah.
Like, you've got to put that research in, and if you're going to have a collaboration, right, it's not just from me to you, it needs to be from you to me too. It has to be like, I need to be working with production companies who understand our channel's tones, who understand what our channel's trying to achieve, and are in the place where they go, okay, these ideas are not going to work. This one could work if we frame it like this. Then we might need this talent. Then we might need this kind of take on it. Okay, this isn't working for you. That's the collaborative process.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was speaking from a perspective of a documentary filmmaker rather than specialist factual entertainment, which is more series and popular ideas. So I was just referring back to really our experience in the past, where you really did have to go in with watertight ideas of exactly what your documentary is going to be about, etc. So it felt much more like you had to go in there armed with all your goods in place, all your ducks in a row. And I agree, you know, you have to do your homework. You have to research what is that commissioner doing? What kind of programs are you interested in? Or if you're going to an independent production company with your ideas, you need to know what they make. It's pointless just going to someone who does more, factual entertainment when you've got a kind of a hardcore, you know, investigative documentary. It just wouldn't mix. So I agree with you. You have to first do your homework with any independent production company or commissioner you're going to with your idea. But yeah, I think with docs, you know, because I do work on one-offs rather than bringing in series for sort of factual entertainment.
Can I just say that I hear you, but I don't fully agree with you, Rui. In the conversations we've had and with the commissioners, there is still an element of, so when you're pitching that hard-hitting documentary idea, it's kind of, do you like it like this? Or if I changed it, could it work like this? And there's still an element of collaboration. And what I found with my limited experience, and I don't know whether, Emile, whether it's been your experience, particularly with those accelerator companies, I think that there was a sense, particularly if you're from the global majority and you are an expert in this idea, that, like you said, it's a bit of a battle and you've got to fight them, and not kind of being quite collaborative and saying, okay, you like this element of idea. If I was to do this with it, would that be more of an interest? And people kind of more of a battle. I'm sure that you haven't dealt with stuff like that, but it's,
to be honest, I haven't. Okay, so I don't want to make this all about me, but I have pitched ideas for ages because I actually gave up pitching ideas because it just became impossible, especially with the kind of subject matters I was interested in. It was just not, you know, it was that thing that people weren't interested in our ideas. They weren't listening to what we had to say. What was, you know, there were those kind of nebulous things like, well, we want to know what's the zeitgeist of, you know, the society today. And it was all these kind of words that were used that were just nonsensical. If I think back now, you know, I mean, and I am talking about, like I said, I haven't pitched an idea, and I'm lucky that I'm someone who gets commissioned to make documentaries about subjects that I'm really interested in because I've built a niche. But now, if I'm thinking of, you know, going for sort of pitching for ideas that I want, films I want to make on, it's just trying to get to know how you do pitch it, you know. And Emile, I understand, you know, I do get it that you're talking about much more series, and it's kind of factual entertainment, which you really have to build up because these are hopefully what become returning series. So for a returning series, you really need to walk it through with the commissioner. I guess I'm just looking at it from my perspective as a sort of someone who makes single documentaries. But anyway,
look, all I would say about single docs is that they're going to be a lot less of them made.
I know.
There are going to be a lot less of them made. And the only real place that you're going to get a lot of those kind of issue-led docs made are BBC, because they've got a public service remit. So the market's changing and we have to change with it. Like, you know, I haven't always made all the shows that I wanted to make. I realized that television is a job, and I realized that but when I get to make the ones that I really, really love, those are the good moments. But throughout my entire career, I've made plenty of stuff that I'm not particularly proud of. But I realize that TV is a job, and TV is not there to feed my ideas and my projects, right? It's to serve a humongous 60 million plus audience, right? So my job is to facilitate that. My job is to make sure that I'm serving that audience, not my taste. That's why I always look back to. And as we go further down the streaming route, right, we know that we're going to be collecting more and more and more data, right? So that means it's really, really clear that what is going to happen is that we are going to have to find creative solutions to data-driven problems, right? If we are not serving the working class who's between 46 and 49, self-identified, right, part of the demographic of the population, we're not going to get big audience, right? What are we not doing in documentaries? Like if you look at Jamali Maddox, which went out last night, a few things that were said about it were firstly, it's so refreshing that it's not a true crime space. It's so refreshing that it's like pretty much, you know, one person and a camera, right? And that you're getting a deep dive into world. So some called it old-fashioned documentary making, some called it refreshing documentary making, and then some called it bringing documentary back. So when I was looking in that space, and the reason I'm looking in that space is because the channel want it. Like, I can look at loads of stuff that I think is is fun or interesting, or that it's to my taste. The channel don't want it. It's not getting made. End of story. So you've got to think about everyone that you're serving, and it's when you serve several, you know, the audience, the channel, etc., the commissioning team, the production company, when you serve all of them, that's when you get your commission.
Thank you, Riri. We've got a few more questions. Thank you, Riri. I really appreciate you. It's good to see you. Can look terrible. If this is you looking terrible, God damn. You, oh my God. See you soon.
My hair's dirty.
Oh, please. Nobody needs to know that. Nobody knows that. Carissa, it's good to hear from you. Let's invite you up on stage if you can. Come and ask your question. How much does social media following manipulate getting your show commissioned? Which is a really good question, because I think that for particularly a lot of global majority populations or creators believe that social media, that's where a lot of stories are discovered and found. So this be a good question. Let's hear your answer. Hello, Grayson. Hey,
Hi.
good to see you. And Grayson is coming all the way from Canada. Big up Canada. So it's lovely.
Well, but it's the afternoon now. It's not 4:30 in the morning for your first session.
I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna lie. This morning I didn't turn on the lights. I stayed in bed and listened because I was like, I can't do this. We have a full house of creatives right now, all working. So I decided to come outside. But I just wanted to say, from a standpoint in Canada, that I've noticed recently is two shows came off last year. One was called Bria Mac Gets a Life, and it was a black women who created it. It made it onto Belle Crave out here. There was also this one called Late Bloomers, which was done by an East India. I think he's East Indian, or he might be Pakistani, I can't remember. But he had a huge following. His show wasn't as well written as Bria Mac. Bria Mac's won a ton of awards here in Canada. Bria Mac didn't have the following on social media. Bria Mac didn't get a second season. Late Bloomers did. And so, and then there's also another social media guy out here who had a huge following. He got a show, which I think is terrible, but that's a story for another day. He has a show. So I'm wondering how much of a social media following, how many people that you can bring with you would help your case in getting your show commissioned?
Okay.
Right question.
Right. From our perspective on our channel, we don't see, factually, we don't see a huge amount of crossover between social and then our channel users, right? Not on linear. I mean, on streaming. I'm only, let's just not even think about linear, right? Just for the moment. I'm just thinking about streamers. Social media users are very happy with clips a lot of the time. They don't need the longer form stuff, so they'll stay there. So if you've got someone who's got a following on social media, it doesn't at all mean to say that following is going to migrate over to the streaming service. We have factually seen that not happen. So I would say no, it's not a big deal. I've spent a good couple of years trying to work out if that was the way forward, and I think now social media, YouTube, etc., they are platforms in themselves. This year YouTube is due to take over Netflix in terms of share of TV content hours.
Yeah, I just did Content Canada. YouTube was there, but YouTube was playing themselves. The person that was doing the workshop was playing it as that a lot, like NBC, the linear channels, were using YouTube, the 60-second clips and stuff, to drag viewers over to watch the whole show, which I found very interesting. But I was also going to ask, because you said factual stuff, maybe not that, but would you say that while you were doing your research, did you at all look at linear, or not linear, scripted? Because both of those shows, I'm just curious if it was something that came up, because both of those shows are streaming service shows. So Crave is a streaming site. It's not linear TV here in Canada. So both of those were scripted, and that's why I'm trying to figure out, like, it's hard to figure out the data when the data isn't fully formed, I guess, is where I'm going at.
I'll talk about scripted, but
no, I understand that. I was just wondering if in your research you came across. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we've got another question before we go to another question. Emile, a lot of the programs that we've seen successful, and maybe not kind of from your stable on UKTV, but like with BBC's and Channel 4's, have been Your Dreaming Whilst Blacks, have been, there was Is It Juice, have been a lot of programs that have started life on YouTube and have built up a following and then have transferred over. I mean, maybe for UKTV, so you're like social media for you doesn't necessarily play a role in terms of whether you commission or not.
So I would say those they started off as test pieces on, you know, Big Zoo to a certain extent, right? Started off as test pieces. They did what you're not seeing is a large following transferring into a large
interesting
viewing figure, right? So it'll be really interesting to see how Mr. Beast does on Amazon, because Amazon is spending 100 million on Mr. Beast, right? He's got a massive following, a huge amount of people there. Are they going to get behind a paywall to go and see that footage? That's the biggest question mark. We don't even have a paywall in the way, right? So if we're not seeing it, and Amazon are investing 100 million, what are they planning? How are they planning to get viewers there?
Yes, it'll be interesting. Hold on, we've got another question for Michelle, which is a great question, and I'll invite Michelle up to ask herself. For Emile, before the end of the stage, if you had a wish list of either talent or potential subject program ideas, can you share with us what those might be?
A wish list of either talent or potential subject program. That's a lot of things. There's a lot of things there. Can you share what those might be? That's everything, Michelle.
I don't know if you can hear or see me, or if
I can
we can hear you. We can't see you, but we can definitely hear you.
I think just probably on behalf of a few other people that might be on this call, it'd be great to hear what you're looking for. You know, you've got you've talked about a range of different types of shows, very different types of shows actually, from, you know, delivering babies at one end, perhaps to last night's series, which was brilliant, by the way. So I don't know if you feel that there's something else out there that you'd love to get, you know, a deck for, or whether you have always wanted to make something yourself, or so just wants to ask, you know, can you give us any hints, Emile?
Well, I'm really transparent with this kind of stuff. I suppose part of me is like, I don't necessarily see ideas like that in a way, Michelle. I suppose I kind of, what I do is I try to deeply understand the channel first of all, and what they need, and then kind of find the creative solution to that, if that makes sense. So, you know, it's the holes in the channel that I'm sort of looking to fill. But that's a sort of abstract idea to some extent, yeah. So look, if you've got on WW, you've got the 5 talent-led shows, yeah. What have they got in common, right? Stacey Dooley, Katie Piper, Emma Willis, Gemma and Gorka. I can't remember the last one.
No, you mentioned them before.
Right, those 5, right? What have they all got in common? There's no diversity there. So yeah. I need a show with diverse talent, which is the start of it. But then it's got to be an interesting journey. It's got to be a returnable series. It's then got to be in the right territory. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of stuff to kind of get through before you get that idea, you know. And what territory would that be in? And what would be the interesting take about it, you know? So there's so much to go through. I always start with the talent a lot of the time, but then I do a lot of shows that haven't got, you know, known on-screen talent. You know, Dream Car Fixers kind of came to me, and well, it didn't come to me. None of these ideas come to me like in a deck form, Michelle. They all come in conversations, top lines. Somebody sent me a bit of tape. Somebody, you know, do you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, why don't we put that together with that? Why don't we do okay, what about this? Okay, so what are they doing? Let's run. Dream Car Fixers took 9 months to develop before we got it commissioned.
And is that the average kind of time? So because like you've spoken about stuff taking a year and a half, 9 months. Is that the average time that it takes to kind of really, like you saying, that's the kind of average time? You said about a year, right? Before we get to pitch, or before we kind of get to conversations and decks. That's what you said.
No,
Suggested
no,
kind
no,
of
it doesn't, no, not at all, not at all. It's the perfect deck.
right.
Yeah.
I
So
gotcha.
we'll have a conversation. First of all, we'll have our first intro meeting. Then it'll take about a month for some ideas to come through as like, as you know, top lines, paras, talent. It'll just be like paragraphs, top lines, top line ideas, that kind of stuff. And then, you know, we'll see some they've done some research, and this particular talent is interested in this particular area, and that's a territory that they know works with us. And then we get into that stage, and then how is it interesting, how is it returnable, what is its tone, where are they going to go to, where's the act, you know what I mean? It's all of that we sort of go through. And I'm working with a company at the moment where we've built an idea up from scratch that started off as being way too similar to Big Zoo's Big Eats. Now it's something completely different, and now everybody's in on it. Now, the other thing I would say about commissioning is I don't hold the button for a green light. Right, I've got to take these ideas and convince a whole bunch of team members, like large amounts of team members, whose idea it isn't, that it's a great idea. And that it would work for our channel. Two things: it's a great idea, and it would work for our channel. And then you've got to go through, right? You know, is it how cost effective is it, etc. What period we're going to shoot it in? You know, what slot, etc. All of that kind of stuff. Anyway, but so I have to convince a lot of people that an idea that I think is good and that works for the channel works for their channel, and they think is good. And it's only when you get that kind of that amount of people behind an idea that you get an idea made. So it's a big, long process.
So essentially, Michelle, thank you so much. I'm gonna Lily, I'm sure Lily will move you. Oh, thank you so much. So for you, so part of your role is to, like you said, to champion ideas, right? So you get an idea, you like those ideas, and then have to kind of champion, or you then have to pitch it up or pitch it.
I'm pitching just as much as anyone else is. I'm pitching all the time. And I'm pitching other people's ideas, so I need to understand it. But like, I'm just to take you away from that talent take territory tone thing. The other thing that I'm looking at that's more important are the, and this is because of the way that television has changed, has gone from linear to being a passive experience, to being an active experience, and to being an investment of time and a waste of time. Right? Those are the two. These are the kind of different. This is the difference between linear and on demand or streaming services is way bigger than the content, right? It is way bigger, and it's the way in which you receive and access content. That action, the action of sitting down, putting on a channel that you know, leaning back, not really paying attention to it, playing on your phone, is come dine with me, go and have a cup of coffee, come back, have a little bit of a laugh. Effectively, I watched about 4 minutes of a 40-minute show, right? But it's on at that time. So you're comfortable with that channel, you put it on at that time. That doesn't exist anymore, because that is not the relationship that we have with television anymore, right? So when you've got streamers, you spend time flicking through the specific program that you're looking for. You then go to yourself, am I going to invest an hour in that? You then turn it on, and if it doesn't grab your attention, right? So it's lean in viewing. If it doesn't grab your attention, if it doesn't keep it there, right, for the first 10 minutes at the very least, you won't get to the end of that episode, and that means you won't access the rest, and you'll forget about it. How many shows have you gone through where you've forgotten about it? And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot to finish that, right? So we look at completion rate all of the time, right? So it's a really different, it's a hugely different relationship that we have. We watch so much television on that, right? They're hugely different relationships, right? This is about how am I going to waste my time? How am I going to, like, you know, flick on my TV screen? I'm going to sit there. Sometimes I will sit, and you know, I'm sure other people will do this. Sometimes I will sit and just watch a feed. Which is effectively linear. That's effectively what linear is. You're watching a feed. You're on. You've decided that you're going to go on Facebook, and then you're watching some videos that are on Facebook. You won't remember any of them the next day, right? So the biggest thing that you now have to do is what is outside of the show is really, really important. And the things that are outside of the show are the title, the tagline, and the key art, right? So universal concept, but feels fresh in the title. Really, really helpful. Follow the leader. Really good example. Red flag. Really universal. No show's been made about that specific area of true crime, right? So we're familiar with the concept, the tagline. Okay, what is that about, right? So the explanation of that series. So it's a red flag, right? So what is it actually about? It's about survivors of crime who didn't spot the red flags, right? So what went wrong there? How, you're telling the story, but you're also telling the story of how they decided to either purposely miss the red flags, or they just didn't see them, right? So you've got this kind of angle, and you've got this dichotomy going on straight away that is not just, it isn't a one note offering. There's a complexity in it, which means that you can go through several layers of returnable series. I don't ever commission one-off shows. I'm not really interested in that. I'm looking for returnable series, the next brand. Why am I looking for returnable series and the next brands? It's because people only come to brands and associate brands and people only come to streamers or streaming services because of the strength of large amounts of content. Not one-off, not this, is several series of content. And what those several series of content do is it gives the streamer an ID, right? So how do you feel? What do you feel Netflix is, right? It's kind of young skewing, isn't it? It's kind of, there's a millennial aspect, potentially, with things like sex education. There is a even Gen Z aspect to it, right? It's young, it's fresh, it's funky, it's all of that kind of stuff. But why? It's because of the content that they commission, and it's because of the regularity of that content. Stranger Things, for example, right? You're watching a bunch of kids, right? You're looking at Netflix, and then the other thing that you're looking at that Stranger Things is telling you is high production values. So you're thinking, like, you're getting good bang for your buck here. Do you know what I mean? It's all of those things, and it's the returnable series that give those streamers and those platforms that ID. So that's what I'm looking at, because I want people to come to this platform.
But it's, I suppose, for kind of oftentimes a lot of global majority content creators find it hard to get a returning series. Like, so the other day, is it sorry you didn't know this, ITV2, I think it's a history game show, which got another commission. I think it's made by Triforce, the guys from Triforce, a really great series. They got a recommission, and then there was a big celebration that it's never been heard of, that they got another series, right? So as much as what you're talking about, how do the global majority, how do we present ideas that have the potential to be returnable series that we can kind of get you on board? Because that's often a challenge, often seems to be a challenge with a lot of content creators that I talk to.
So when you think of global majority, or like people of color, right?
Yeah.
We have got to think about all content, not just content that appeals to Black or Asian people or whatever. We've got to think about content as a whole, right? So if we think about content as a whole, we're talking to the whole audience, right? Now, if somebody within that happens to be Asian or happens to be Black, brilliant. If a precinct within that happens to be Asian or happens to be Black, brilliant, right? But what do you need to do to appeal to a universal audience? You need to have universal truths. So when you're looking at your content, you need to go, okay, how accessible is this for someone who doesn't know the characters? The characters, right, are inside the show. You've got to look at outside the show, right? You've got to look at the concept that is outside the show, the concept that is presented in the title, the key art, and the tagline. You've got to look at that primarily, right? Now, within that concept, is there enough gas to go series 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Yeah, you need to go, is there enough complexity? Are there enough layers? So Dream Car Fixers we commissioned and will be for its second series. So out of my series, it's normally 1 in every 10 that gets commissioned for a second series. I think 5 out of 10 of mine are commissioned for a second series.
Okay. Oh wow.
So what lens it, and one of them was one-off. So, that was when we were doing them. So when you're looking at your show, you're I'm not thinking of series 1, I'm thinking of series 2.
Right.
I'm looking at series 2 first of all, right? So is this a good, is this idea going to have enough complexity, variation? What is the what is the narrative arc? Where are we going to get to at the end of series 1? And does it allow us to go into series 2, or does it just stop there? Because if it stops there, then I'm a bit like, okay, and you know, where do we take it after that? And if that answer isn't clear, or if it's not forthcoming, I'm less interested in commissioning it. I'm going to get behind ideas that I think have the variety and the complexity, and also have the universality. That's the difficult alchemy that you're talking about in terms of look at Red Flag, right? So like, here's a good example, right? You've got Love Rats. What's that about? That's about cheating. Yeah, it's about partners who cheat effectively. Red Flag, what's that about? That is about so many different types of warning signs. They can come in all sorts of different shapes, right? So if those warning signs can come in all sorts of different shapes, it means that I can take cases spread across a huge variety. Whereas if I go into series 3 of Love Rats, I'm talking more about cheating. Now, the accessibility point with Love Rats is interesting because it's about cheating. What do we know about cheating? It's got the highest engagement on social media in terms of relationships. And these are the things that I look at. This is the proof of concept work that I'll do. But what else do we know? We know from Red Flag, for example, one of the first things I did is I looked at Red Flag and dating. How many articles are on Red Flag and dating? And at the time, it was 1.64 million.
Wow.
Right. So I'm like, okay. And I hear it every single day. I've never not heard the word red flag in a day, basically, outside of the program. You hear it in every different environment, right? So I know it's got universality, but nobody made a series about it. So I know that it's got that freshness too. So you're familiar with the concept. Then is it wide enough? Is it big enough, all encompassing enough to have a variety of different stories within it? Let's just say if it was something that was just about marriage breakdowns, it's going to get repetitive, right? Because it's in one space, it's in one particular space. How, what is it that you're focusing on? What lens are you looking through, and what's the framework in order to give that the variety that it needs to be? So you can't tell the same story again and again and again. It's got to have that variety. So it's all of that stuff that you need to look at, basically.
No, because it's interesting because I think for a lot of global majority of Black and brown producers, creators of colors, a lot of people come to this space because they have important stories that they want to tell, right? There's things about their community that they want to share. They think that there's important issues that they want to share. So how would you take something like that and universal it up where it does, or how do you take those stories that are really passionate to us, stories that we think are really important? And obviously, like you said, there's less and less space for the one-off documentary now. So how do we make give those ideas and make them bigger, make them more universal? If there are
those stories, anyone has to understand, regardless of what culture they come from. First of all, that's the primary thing. You've got to understand the human emotion that goes on there. Now, human emotions are universal, but what are the things that carry stakes? What are the elements of a story that carry stakes? So I always absolutely look at stakes. So when you look at something like Emma Willis delivering babies, the stakes are literally writ large. It's life and death, right? Yeah, it's literally birth, life, and how the passage of that is, it can be so dangerous at times, right? So the universality comes from emotions and human journeys and stakes. So the less universal something is, the less likely it is to continue. But then don't forget, like, in that world, issue-based stories that you don't see any current affairs on streamers, do you? You see no current affairs, and I think that's really, really, really telling. So one of the big things that we have to do here is we have to stay on the boat. If we're not on the boat by the time everything kind of plateaus, and by the time everything kind of readjusts, because this will be a huge period of readjustment. If we're not on that boat, then we won't get the chance to tell those stories anyway. So we have to adapt. We have to do the work that's required to keep commissioning. Like at this time, the most important thing for me is to keep working my arse off to find new commissions that work for the channel, and keep taking that chunk of money and making sure that my names are attached to it, because otherwise, I'm not. Let's just say I'm not commissioning for you. I haven't commissioned anything for a year. Let's just say, yeah, I'm not going to keep my job, am I? So if that's the case, where am I? My voice is going to be out of the picture, right?
No, I definitely, and it's that the kind, because I was going to go. It kind of leads me quite nicely to, obviously we know it's really rough out there and tough out there, and we're going to hear it, like how that's impacting on you and other kind of commissioners and other kind of broadcasters or streamers. What is the thing currently that's keeping you up mostly at night? What's the thing that's kind of got you tossing and turning? Is it what you've just kind of described, what you just spoke about?
So I urge any of the people here, I don't know if there's anyone left, is there? Oh, there's 18 people.
There's 20 of us there. We're all here listening.
Everyone had gone.
No, and please hold on to that point. Please add questions and comments in the chat, so it doesn't feel like we're in the bar having a little chat. Please get involved. Please, really encourage you to put questions and comments, and in the question bar, please. Sorry, Emile, you go.
Right, what you've got to go and see, I think, is you've got to go and see the Edinburgh Festival opening debate that I just produced. Let me just pick it up, right?
Thank you.
It's factual research on where the industry is at this moment in time. Right, I'm just going to get the link. Where is it? Probably is somewhere.
Thanks, Vinny.
You got it. You got it.
No, yeah, Lily. Did you send it to Lily?
Have you already put it up? Hang on.
No,
sorry.
Just commenting that we're still here. If you, she will.
Let me just quickly get it, because I can get it. Here it is, right? So you need to see this, because it is YouTube going. It is a factual breakdown of where the industry is at the moment, which was absolutely hugely required, because there wasn't transparency about what was happening. And to be fair, there were a lot of people who didn't know. There are a lot of people on the broadcasting side who are in staff jobs, and they aren't seeing that they're not subject to those pressures in the way that freelancers are. So I've spoken to some freelancers lately who said, I wasn't worried about it because I was working. But the thing is, we're seeing that period of change happen right in front of our eyes. Now, Sabrina, might still be here, she worked with me on this. And there's actually there's a report that we've issued as well. And so you can see it sort of factually cited. The thing that concerns me is that we are at the early stage of this evolution. We are not at the middle stage or the end stage at all. We're at the early stage of this evolution.
No, but we're hearing survive till 25. So is it only going to take a couple of months? What do you mean? Because it's like survive till 25. In 25, it's all going to all going to get back together, and we're all going to be all right, and there's going to be lots of jobs in the air.
Well, you don't believe that, Simone, do you?
That's what we've been told. Survive till 25. So we're going to come.
Who's telling you that? Because I'm not telling you that, and I've never told you that.
No, I know, I'm teasing, but that's been I'm teasing, but that's generally been the general consensus, isn't it? That survive till 25. In 25, things are going to get better. I think we're all questioning how will advertisers run back to how will things get better? But that's been the rhetoric, that we've got to survive till 25. Is that not your sense or feeling? I'm going to watch that link because I haven't. Okay.
No way is that what's happening in the industry. Absolutely not. Well, I mean, also, can I just say that we have to take responsibility for this as well. If we're just going to believe slogans, it's no better than get Brexit done, right? It's no better than that stuff. You've got to interrogate that material, and that's why I went to the lengths, and Sabrina can tell you the months of research that we went to produce this, so that you can look at that and that Ros Atkins presentation and go, okay, I understand where the fundamental changes and the fundamental shifts are in the industry. And what I would say about the fundamental shifts and changes is I'm reporting on what has happened or is happening in a way that broadcasters were not able to, because they were only seeing their perspective, right? So if the BBC was doing okay because of the way it's funded, it's only telling you their perspective. Channel 4 is telling you a different perspective because it's about ad funding. BBC's, not ad funded, is it? So what do you see what I mean? So how does all of that work? How does it all mix together? It's in that presentation, and it's in
Give us the highlights. Give us the highlights, because you're talking about it. Obviously, we're all going to kind of go. We're all intrigued to watch it, but give us some of the headlines. So give us some of the headlines that came.
The fundamental change in viewing, two primary fundamental changes we have been in the domestic space since television was invented, right? We've been in domestic companies and broadcasters have had the monopoly on all our 67 million.
Explain what that means. Domestic. What explains the name?
BBC, Channel 4, ITV, 5, and then the various different digital services, right? So British companies, domestic companies, have had all of our audience captive for that period of time, right? You get a handful of shows, American shows make it through, some in the morning on Channel 4, some on Sky, all of that kind of stuff, right? The percentage share taken by global networks has risen and risen and risen and risen and risen and risen to squeeze that domestic output down, right? If you think about it, that we're still in the same position. We've only got 24 hours a day. Yeah, the average person, I can't remember exactly what it was. It's in that presentation, but watches about 3 hours 44 minutes TV a day. Sorry, visual content a day. So you've got on the one side YouTube, right, which is international content. People are spending their time watching that. That's made, you know, internationally and also in the UK. You've got streamers, Disney, Amazon, Apple. They're all American. Netflix, they're all American, right? So the fundamental change, first of all, is globalization of television, right, and TV content and visual content, right? So we're watching a lot of content from other countries. So domestic companies need to fight harder to have that same amount of time, because we're watching so much stuff, right? We're watching so much stuff in the US. So how many, like, I don't watch BBC dramas. I always watch US dramas. So there you go. So there's one big chunk of my life, a primary chunk of my life, that's going to US markets. Yeah. So there's that, first of all. The other thing is the change from linear, which is a passive lean back viewing experience, to a proactive lean in investment in time experience, which is what catch up is, or on demand, or BVOD, or
Explain
SVOD,
that to me so that I understand it. Is that because I've made a decision to watch it, that I've chosen that I want to watch it at this time, so I'm going to sit down and be focused on it rather than it's just kind of coming at me, essentially?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there is an equivalent of linear in terms of what's on your feed. So if you choose to go on Insta or whatever and scroll through it and you look through a few videos, that's effectively linear back. You're not choosing there. You're not choosing a particular title. You're not choosing to invest a certain amount of time, right? Because, and that's why YouTube is taking up so much time, because it's cumulative. Like if you put the proposition in front of someone where you go, right, do you want to watch something for 2 minutes? Well, yeah, no problem. I'll watch something for 2 minutes. Do you want to watch something for 57 minutes? Let me think about it. Right. Let me think if I'm going to invest my time in that. So it's the nature in which we access footage, and any visual footage of any kind it's a complex relationship, and it's very different to linear. We are no longer served our dinner. We choose. We look into the menu. Yeah,
absolutely making it. So the highlights is in terms of, so essentially how the domestic market, and that being kind of with all content coming in. I've noticed with Netflix of recent, they're really pushing kind of really international content. I don't know if it's just my son could be just watching a lot of Chinese stuff, so all of a sudden I've got a lot of Korean dramas and stuff. You know, the algorithms could be my child. But I have noticed that when you go on there, there's a lot of content from different parts of the world, which is always being kind of shown. So like you're saying, the kind of squeeze on the domestic market and the way that we're consuming content.
It's competing with a lot of international market in a way that it never, a lot of international content in a way that it never has had to before.
But does that not open up for us as content producers new opportunities in different markets? I guess, is there a kind of them?
Well, it can, and it could and it couldn't. You know what I mean? Because what you're saying there is, okay, would we as a production company, like would our production company be able to make a Korean show to sell back to the UK, if you see what I mean? Because that's really what that avenue is, right? The only actual avenue that it is opening up is, could we make a television show in the UK that would sell in the US, or sell in one of those big markets? The other thing is, right, if you look at how US businesses approach their market compared to how we approach our market, they've got 300 million people over there, right? So subscription markets in cable, etc., they can be they have been really lucrative, or they're dying out now, yeah. But they can just super serve their market, and they can reap all of those rewards. They never think just beyond the boundaries of the US. They always think about how they're going to serve international markets. They always there might be US kind of shows and references, but they are always selling those shows abroad. We don't do that enough, and we have not done that enough. Right, we've got The Crown, but and Downton Abbey, but that trades on a specific type, type of stereotype of person. It's all period. It's in the past. What about the future? What about the present? How do you if you look at sex education, I think that's a really interesting take, sex education, because it is set in a place in the UK that's not kind of identified, right? But as a UK viewer know it's in the UK. But if you took it away to other countries, you'd know it's somewhere different. But it's not so uniquely UK, right? What they're just doing is they're shaping that place and that world so that it can work in multiple different territories. Baby Reindeer did that a bit as well, not loads, but it did it a bit.
But it's interesting because a lot of conversations that I've had, or one of the things that I've had, and maybe it's changed because it might have been a while, is that the kind of that niche in, is it local, super hyper local stories are the things that work. So people want really, really super hyper, which doesn't quite seem to fit with what you're saying. Is that still the case, that people really want really super local stories, or stories that tell you specifically really about a very specific place, and then you find a universality in that?
So one streamer is telling you to do that.
Oh.
Netflix is telling you to do that. And why is Netflix telling you to do that? Is because of the different business models. So if you look at the different business models of Netflix, Disney, Amazon. Now I did all this. This is all in that document as well, right? Amazon and Apple, right? What are the different business models? Netflix is business model. What they want to do is they're the ones with the most developed algorithm, right? What they want to do is they want to provide each person in every city and country in the world with their own personalized playlist of content. That's what they want to do. What do Amazon want to do? They want the broadest possible range so that the most people come into Amazon and then not just watch Prime, but buy all their supermarket stuff, do all their shopping there. That's what they want. That's what they want you to do. Disney works on the 4 primary pillars of content that it has. That is Star Wars, Pixar, Marvel, and Disney itself. It works across those 4 legacy labels, and everything works into those labels. And there are a couple of other shows here, here and there, like Vogue, or like the Spencer Matthews thing, or like the or Extraordinary, that sit outside of that. But largely, it super serves those 4 pillars. Why? Because it's going heavy on brands. Netflix don't have legacy brands, right? In the same way, Disney's the oldest, brand there is in television, right? So it's working on those legacy brands. Star Wars is 50 years old nearly, you know what I mean? It's working those up, and it's because it's that familiarity. Apple, what are Apple trying to do? They're going, we just do premium content. We don't do much of it. We just do premium content. So every time they release a show, it's got either Ewan McGregor on it, or it's got Jake Gyllenhaal on it, or it's hit first time that he did a show, first time Ewan McGregor did a factual show, first time Harrison Ford did a scripted TV show. They're looking for those absolute premium talent. Like in factual, they're looking at people like LeBron James, Magic Johnson. The absolute top tier high talent. But what are they actually doing? They're the only platform that is agnostic about who they host on their platform. So they host all of the different other channels like Amazon, BBC, and all of that kind of stuff, and they promote all of that stuff. Why are they doing that? It's because they want to be the homepage for television, and that is super, super smart. We're not going to put our money into content, right? We're going to put a bit of money into content, which Apple's turnover, Apple's Apple is worth 3.2 trillion, right, at the moment, right? They're going, we're not going to put our money directly into content, even though it looks like it is a bit, but this is small fry for them. What we're doing is we know that over time, not this amount of streaming service, this amount of television services are not going to exist. Disney has made has made so many huge losses over time, like huge losses, and it's pumped it into there because it wants it to be the destination. Apple are going, hang on, if we're really agnostic, everyone has to come through us because it's the easiest way to get to content. We'll take all the ad streaming, bang,
Right.
away.
Yeah. Bloody hell. Hold on. I mean, I wasn't expecting this as well. No, it's really interesting in terms of how the industry is shaping, and like you're saying, the different kind of priorities of the different streamers. We've got a slightly lighter question from Sabrina actually, but I'll throw it in because I want to make sure we've got about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure everybody's questions are answered. Sabrina, can I invite you on stage? I'll invite you, and you make a choice on whether you want to come
Natalie
on.
Portman, yes, exactly.
I'll invite you. Is no response. All right. Yes. Oh, she's joined backstage. She'll be coming on in a second. Just bear with. Wonderful. Wonderful. She'll be joining. So is there anything UKTV is not looking for at the moment? For example, do you have enough car shows?
Why do you want to know what we're not looking for, Sabrina?
She'll explain it in a second, but what are you not looking for at the moment? There's always stuff that companies, channels are
Not
over.
looking for singles. I'm not looking for features. I'm not looking for.
Is there any territories that you're not, just like a bit of a no-go for you? Sabrina, okay, please turn on your mic. Yeah, thank you, lovely. Thank you.
There's three that I don't sort of tend to look at on W, for example. I don't look at the 3Ds. What are they? Depression, death, and divorce. I'm not really looking at those as subject matters because we tend to do, because we don't have a public service remit. We're a commercial company, so we have to make shows that are accessible, and these subjects are not always particularly accessible. People don't necessarily want to, go to bed on their own and then watch a show about divorce. Do you know what I mean? So it can be a bit much, right? So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the accessibility points and how they're getting in. I'm not looking for conflict. Sorry, that's not just me. UKTV are not looking for conflict-based shows. So
Sabrina, does that answer?
Yeah, that does. I just sometimes, hi Emile, great talk.
Hi.
I just sometimes find it's really useful to know what a channel isn't looking for. And for me, developing ideas, and what's not on the table. And then not that starting from a negative point is a good starting point, but just for me, I found it very helpful. So not even to go there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of
like, I mean, the only thing I would say about that is, like, when I first started on Dave, they certainly weren't looking for premium factual shows. They weren't looking for Jamali Maddox Follow the Leader. But I sold it to them in terms of the way it was packaged, because sorry, not that I sold it to them, because it wasn't that they weren't looking for it and then I presented this idea and then suddenly they went, okay, that's great. No, over time, the steers and the way in which the channel evolved meant that opening for that show became bigger. Yeah. And that's all that was. It's never that. It's, I mean, what you've got to remember sometimes with commissioners, I'm going to say something really weird here, but what you've got to remember sometimes with commissioners is that they are human, and I try not to be human. Right? So the reason I try not to be human is that I approach each idea in the most rational way. Right? Why? Because my taste is not important. My taste is not representative of the audience. And I know that. If I had my way and if the channel was making the shows that I want, they would be fucking weird, right? They would be really off. The kind of stuff that I like is like Adult Swim and Brass Eye and stuff like that, right? It's off the wall. It is not popular. So I have to take myself out of it and look and break down ideas and go, is that serving our audience? Is that doing what our channel need? And that's why I'm saying I try to not be human, not bring my emotions into it. I don't go, we don't want to do something with this particular person because I don't like her or whatever. No. So when you're dealing with commissioners, you have to remember that quite a lot of the time, it's that you're dealing with emotions. Quite often, you're dealing with tastes. And I'm not saying that that's right. I try to not be like that. I don't take the easy way out and go, would my mum like that? My mum is not representative of the whole population and never will. And no one is representative of the whole population. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to go,
Mhm.
okay, right, like what is the market? What is the heartland? What is, like, how do we test the engagement? You know, that's what we did with Red Flag, for example.
Mhm.
And it sounds, because we did a audience insight session earlier on, and it sounds those insights, like particularly like you say, when you take away the emotion, your emotion, that you have finding that you have to lean heavier on that insight, on the data, on those kind of things to kind of guide you through. Still, or is there still kind of an element of instinct with you? Are commissioners leaning more and more and more on data and the research and the stuff like
There
that?
will
Or
be, Simone. That, I mean,
yeah,
they are. Yeah, because like you can't. It's a business. You can't ignore data. You won't last very long if you ignore data, because you know, if the business has more information and it understands more about what its audience might want, and if you go, I don't want to commission that, you're not doing your job then, in my opinion. So the best way now, I think, is to go in, be an early adopter, and I don't think we're that early now, but be an early adopter and grasp that data, try and understand that, use all the tools, try and get hold of it. You'll see some early if you're on LinkedIn, and I just urge you all to get on LinkedIn, because it's one of the few ways at the moment that you can profile yourself and you can show your USP. I talk to Sabrina a lot about this. You need to be able to show potential employers that you are not just a program maker, that you're more than that, and that you've got the capability, and you've got the you've got the, what's the right word, you've got the skills to be able to move into this new world, whatever that new world becomes. I don't know if I said this earlier, but the biggest thing that I noticed about you know, the thing that keeps me up at night is that we're at the early stage of development.
Yeah, that's what you were saying, which is very scary.
Right. So if we're at the early stage of development in that next world of content, you know, where are we going to fit in? I can tell you now, the days of commissioning because we like a production company or we like a certain talent, that is never going to happen. Right. Those days are winding. They're absolutely winding down. And if that's the only method that you use to commission, then you won't last in that business, because the data will be telling you to do something else.
Yeah, and you
It's
can't.
about how we interpret that, and it's how we use it, and where the creativity comes from is finding those creative solutions. It's telling you one thing, but what does that look like in a program? And within the program, what does that look like? And with outside the program, what does that look like? That's where all the creative stuff does. A lot of people say to me, oh, do you miss the creativity? Like, I'm collaborating with my teams every single day on, and we talk really candidly about ideas and, you know, editorial and stuff like that. And we very rarely disagree. We very, very rarely disagree, because I'm giving them as much information as I possibly can to make them make an educated decision, and we come to decisions together. And if I continue to give them that amount of information, we end up being at the same place, because we're all program makers.
So this, like you often talk, like you mentioned that we're at the beginning of this kind of next evolvement, or you know, evolution of kind of TV or content making. How long do you reckon it will last, and what will the other side look like?
Well, the stages that it's going to go through. Okay, so first of all, small indies are under threat, basically, because of the amount of content and the style of content, right? So a lot of small indies, and the way that you, and what we've got to be really, really careful of is that the way that we move up, you know, particularly people from low socioeconomic backgrounds, the way they get on a foot on the ladder is they work through, you know, reoccurring formats, because it's kind of lower risk, right? They don't go in making author docs, do they? They go in making come dine with me's and dinner dates, like I did, that kind of stuff. So if you start to remove that, you're starting to you potentially are removing a big
Chunk of the
big
community.
entry point, accessibility point, right? So there's that first of all, but then small indies need those shows to survive. So how are they? So how is a small indie going to provide an outlay for a big show with big talent when the infrastructure doesn't exist, right? So that's a concern. That means that you're going to end up with your Banijay's all three, and your Fremantles, which are conglomerates basically. So it's going to start going away in music, where, you know, there's 4 big labels, right? I think there's 4 big labels, Universal, EMI and stuff, and they all have subsidiary labels, right? So if you're within that housing, you have some protection, and then you also have like economies of scale that are experienced by the company. You also have access to edits. You also have, you know, you need that kind of access, and that means that if you're going through fallow periods where you're not making loads of shows, you're still kind of supported by the rest of the business, right?
Exactly.
So that's a concern. We won't have as many streaming services, separate streaming services, as we have now. That will
Okay, you
come
think
back.
they'll start
They'll
coming
start.
together?
They'll come together. They'll come together.
Mm.
The business models, they will. They'll be. They're. I'm not sure this is necessarily going to happen, but there might be a fire sale. What happens when companies are consistently losing money? They sell their IP effectively, right? Disney ain't going to sell theirs, right? But who's going to sell up first, and who's going to get gobbled, and who's going to get eaten? What you need to do is look at Evan Shapiro's map of the content universe. Also, look at Evan Shapiro's.
Can we say that one again? Can we have that one put into chat, Lily? Sorry, repeat that again.
It's Evan Shapiro.
Yeah, thank you, Shapiro. Yeah, that's giving me anxiety trying to know how to spell that. So that's wonderful. Look at that, fantastic content universe, wonderful. We'll have a look at that. Okay.
So look at those. If you want an idea of like who's got the best chance of surviving to an extent, and who's going to stay in the market, who can go. Do Apple really need to produce like masthead content if they can just be the homepage for television? But they don't, do they? Google don't, do they? What did Google sell you?
Yeah.
Google don't sell you any clothes. They don't have their own. They don't have their own stuff. Do YouTube have originals anymore? They don't, do they? They just host it. That's where the cleverness lies, basically, in Apple's. It gets you onto the platform. How much have you paid? Have you ever paid for Apple, the TV service?
I do.
You do. So I've had a year's worth of Apple for free.
Oh wow!
I've had three 3-month blocks.
I'm clearly in the wrong place.
And a 1-month block.
Oh
right?
my god! Oh my god!
All free.
Yeah.
Why?
No,
Why?
you're right though. But most people get deals and mobile deals and this kind of deals and that kind of deals that gives you access to these streamers. Wow.
So I just come in, I churn. They've got the highest churn of anyone, right? Because they provide the free kind of service. But what do they want to show you? They want to show you that this is the way to navigate around that content universe. They're the portal. They're the way in. So, but look, what I want to do just for the last few minutes is answer any, just do some Q&As if there's
if there's any questions that anybody. I think we're all kind of like just kind of like taking that all in, and my head is kind of like it's a lot to think about. Thank you. Perhaps this is a better question. Okay, let's see. Michelle's got a question again. Thank you. Perhaps the better question is there any data that has worked on that measures, you know, what's successful or what is looking successful, what success looks like at the moment?
Michelle, when you say what data, are you talking about what represents success in terms of data measurement, or are you saying what points to success in terms of data collation?
So I've invited. She's coming. Michelle is a coming. She'll answer that. So she's a coming.
Yeah. So she's saying measure success as well. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, she's here.
Oh, it's Sabrina. Sorry.
Yeah, Sabrina's. Was it Sabrina? Sorry, whoever. Yeah, it was Sabrina's question, I believe. Yeah, Sabrina's back with us. Sabrina, please take off your. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Sabrina's, the floor is yours. We can all hear you. Yeah.
Thank you. No, you mentioned when I asked my previous question that you mentioned about look at what works for UKTV, and we have to understand the data in the future to develop ideas really and really understand our audience. And I just wondered if there was any data out there on UKTV.
Yes. So we don't share that data. So that all stays like within the 4 walls. But it's like what I will do is it's my job to harness data and to understand the data so that I can go to you. We know that there is an audience for this, right? So here's a good example. Red Flag, 8 episodes. Which episodes perform better than others, right? So there are different ages of women, different types of case, different kind of like crimes of passion or whatever you want to put it, right? Which ones performed the best? Obviously, episode 1 performs the best typically, but why does episode 6 nearly perform as well as episode 1? That's unusual, right? How is that happening? First of all, where was that watched? Like, primarily it was online. Secondly, why did so many people come to that? So what we started to do is we started to plot everything about that episode, right? The woman who was in episode 6 was completely different to the woman who was in episode 1 in terms of her demo, in terms of a case, right? We then started to notice that the really snappy titles that we'd written, a few of them had buzzwords, effectively, like gaslit, things like that, that we know have heavy engagement on social media, right? So we noticed that these particular concepts that have heavy engagement on social media were showing a spike in viewers. Now, between you and me, I know of I know that this series got leaked onto a platform, right? And I took all the information from that platform, basically, because it was publicly available. I saw it and I was like, this is going to be really interesting because it's not on our platform, but I can measure elements of that. What was the episode that again came really, really high on that, that did well? Again, it was that same episode. The difference was all of the thumbnails were exactly the same and only the titles were different. So I was like, okay, it's the title. So what is it about the title? And then correlate. You know, I mean, that's the data.
But it sounds like your job as a commissioner, or what I had imagined, or previously. I've been around for a long time, but what we previously imagined the commissioner, it sounds very different, and you sound a little bit like not a data scientist, might be a bit too extreme, but you're actually spending a lot more time kind of analyzing and kind of looking at data rather than what we imagine you with the kind of creative gut. And how does that feel? The job of the commissioner is leaning far more into data now and using that to drive you guys' decisions. Yes, that's what's.
What are you going to do? You know, Simone, what are you going to do? Are you going to forego information because you know better? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not that person. I don't know better. I don't know better than my audience. You know? I need to. I'm not. There will be less gatekeepers. I will not be a gate. I'm never going to be a gatekeeper. I was never going to be a gatekeeper. I never will be a gatekeeper. What I need to do is I need to be, in order to keep my job in commissioning, right, or whatever it is that I do, I need to be clever about where I'm, what resources I'm using, because what can I offer that other commissioners who are kind of, who are part of the family or whatever, or who are kind of impenetrable and bulletproof, etc. They can have, they don't have to have successes. What can I offer? I need to be able to offer insight into the future, and I need to be able to offer my analytical skills that are then allied to high quality program making. Now, what I would say is, I'm just talking about analysis at the moment, but in terms of program making, like, I am so heavily involved in that program making. And I can go from Big Zoos, Big Eats, which is, which I completely flipped on its head in series 3 editorially, right? And got unbelievable reviews, to further BAFTA nominations after winning 2 BAFTAs, right? So after winning 2 BAFTAs, it then got nominated again for 2 BAFTAs, right? That's really, really hard to do because of the editorial. The best reviews that you'll see for documentaries for Jamali Maddox, well, these, that's taken for granted. I better be a fucking good program maker if I'm going to be a commissioner. That's just my job, though. So what do I do? That is my job. Just being good at, just being good at your job in this kind of environment isn't enough. So I've got to be more than my job, and I need to tell people that I'm more than my job, and I need to think through everything, and I need to be at the forefront, the vanguard of an evolutionary process, so that I can keep my job in television. Because otherwise I won't keep my job. If I just concentrate on program making, there'll be less programs, I'll get less and less job offers. It just,
I mean, like this. I mean, I think that exactly that, Vinny. I think that we shouldn't have called this session The Perfect Pitch. It should have been The Bloody Future of TV. That has been insanely mind-blowing. And just to think about the changes that are happening, we did an audience insight session earlier on, and I believe that that's available for people to watch. that really talked about the data. We saw how data was important and got a sense of how important data was. But actually, how you're using it as a commissioner, that's just mind blowing. Although we kind of know it, I think just to kind of hear it said in that way is so important. And I've definitely urged you guys to look at the Edinburgh opening statement and the the universal content to kind of have an understanding of where we're going in the current years. It's so important. That was phenomenal. Everybody's saying a great thing. I think that we all will appreciate your candor as well, and how refreshing and just how open you are. Yeah, we all agree. Emile for DG, mate. Emile for DG. But we're excited to see where
Who's
you
laughing?
end up.
Who's laughing
No,
about
no.
that? Why couldn't I be?
Who's laughing?
Laughing as well.
Who's laughing?
I've
There's
just
two of them
started laughing as
laughing.
well.
Kick them out. Kick them out.
But what I would say is
No,
none of
seriously.
this, like, you don't have to listen to anything that I say. It could all be complete nonsense, right? But the only thing that I'm doing is the only thing I feel I'm doing is interpreting what is in front of me, what I can see with my own eyes. That's all I'm doing. I'm just finding patterns and interpreting it. I mean, obviously the Edinburgh session was fully researched, and one of the things that you find when you talk about ad funding is that 75% of ad funding of the 36.6 million is now on internet. I can't remember what they call it. Is on the internet, basically, right? And it was 22% on television, and now it's Sabrina, you'll have to tell me if this is right. It was 22 and now it's down to 13, or it was 19 and or it was 22 and down to 19. I can't remember. But it's so ads funding has tipped over onto the internet for the first time to over 3/4. Right? Why has it done that? It's because of targeted marketing.
Marketing, yeah, you're right.
It's targeted marketing. So we know that. So there's no reason for it to come back.
No, and I think that we all know that. And I think what's been so enlightening is that it's probably one of the realest conversations we've had about what's happening in TV and what the future looks like. We had a really scary figure that they were saying that kind of terrestrial TV, we see the death by 2029, I think, was from the internet, from the data, what it's reflected, which was like quite alarming. I mean, we were all like, oh, what are you talking about? But I think that what's been really refreshing or really important about this session is it really gives us a shake to understand what's coming and for us to become aware. And like you said, we don't have to take you for verbatim, but research and find out for yourself, right? And that there is a change happening.
Don't listen to me.
Yeah, don't listen to me. I'm just a messenger. But no, seriously, it's really advisable to kind of go and find out what's happening, listen to the talks, and keep your ears open to kind of the changes. This is why this festival, the sessions like this are so important, because oftentimes we're just beavering around trying to get paid, beavering away just looking for the next job, and don't look up to see the bigger changes that are happening in the industry. So thank you.
If I'm going to leave you with one thing, get on LinkedIn, be on LinkedIn, start selling yourself in different ways than your program making ability, in bigger ways. Look at Cassie Qualis. Stephanie Schlond. Stephanie Schlond is working in animation now.
Yeah, she's an AI filmmaker. Yeah,
she was a PD of Factual and Obs Docs, right? It's up to us to adapt, and television was never going to stay the same. It was never going to be the same. Why would it be the same? It's going to change.
The only constant, what did I say? The only constant we have is change, right? And we often forget that.
And embrace it. The more you embrace it, the more and what happens is that if you do that, and like, honestly, in what is it? How long have I been linked? I've been posting on LinkedIn probably. What is it now? What are we in now? September, is it? I've forgotten. I've been posting for 9 months, basically, right? Because I was like, okay, I need to improve my profile. So I posted for 9 months. The doors that has opened are insane. It's insane. I've gone from like being a completely obscure commissioner to someone who's producing Edinburgh, who's meeting kind of like people like Jordan Schwarzenberger and stuff like that, and we're having those conversations. So all I'm saying is that, like, we've always had to sell ourselves as freelancers. I still feel like a freelancer. I've been in, okay, fine, I've been here, but we always have to sell ourselves as freelancers, because because you have to, because redundancies are everywhere. The next people that will get hit are commissioners, absolutely. So we always have to tell ourselves that we always have to adapt. Just get ahead of it before
Get ahead of the curve, man.
before you're doing
And
the
what
same
I think,
thing everyone else is.
I think the biggest takeaway is that you're in control of your career, and you've got to kind of grasp it and not leave it to the industry and just kind of follow aimlessly. That there are things you can do to future-proof yourself, to make sure you're ahead of the curve, to make sure you're an expert, to get your content out there. It's so interesting, these conversations. I urge you to look at the data insights, because they talked about YouTube and where it fits in, user-generating content. I think 70% of content that's being consumed is user-generated. So much to digest. Listen, I'm going to sign off. We've got an early start tomorrow, 9:30. I think it's rigged format shows. How you can kind of get away with some rigged format shows. And we're looking at from the creative, those that have worked on Big Brother. So that should be a great session. And I think we've got an amazing international networking, speed networking forum next tomorrow afternoon as well. So please come along and ensure that you invite people. Emile.
Can I thank everyone for coming and for listening, and for the nice comments and everything. I hope it was a bit helpful. But it's really nice to know that I didn't turn up and it was just going to be you and me, Simone. As much as I like.
No, that was good to know. It wasn't just you didn't clear the room. You did not clear the room. You were amazing. No, seriously, but on a real, you were. I knew you would be. I knew it'd be amazing. So thank you so much. Thank you, and we'll see you guys all tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.